So, what's time? Gabriella, you have an answer?
Time is like numbers stuck together.
Numbers stuck together? How so? With glue? What are you talking about?
So it's like numbers in an order
Okay.
that they just get like stuck together in the order. And once it changes, like it's 2:30. Once it changes to 1, they swap.
So, you're saying that the numbers are going in order. And are you talking about if you looked at a clock, you would see it goes from 1 and in clockwise, see? Just like we use that word all the time when you go in a circle. It's going in a circle and the numbers get bigger, and once it hits 12, it starts over and it flips. Okay. And Kenzie, I absolutely agree with you. I'm not the best at time either. So this will be a great learning time for you. Well, Gabriella said that time is with these numbers. But what do these numbers mean? What do the numbers on a clock represent? Ooh, we love the word represent. Stephen, who also says he's an expert at time. Let's hear from the experts.
It means like the time, like if it's 1 o'clock and then they're 1 minute later, and then it takes 5 minutes to get to the next one to do.
So you're saying if we're touching the 1 o'clock, the 1 on the clock, that means that it's 1 a.m. or 1 p.m.
Yeah.
The hour is 1.
But if it's a.m. and on 11, and then it goes to 12, then it's actually called 12 p.m., not 12 a.m.
True, that's true. So Stephen's saying that time is talking about the day. So if it's the afternoon, if it's night, if it's the morning. So he's saying time helps us know what part of the day we're in. Because if you look outside right now, you're like, the sun is up, so clearly it must be morning. But a clock tells us time, and the time is more specific. It tells us exactly what moment we are in the world. I'm trying not to use the word time in my definition, right, Stephen? That's hard.
It's 9:25.
I'm sorry?
It's 9:25 right now.
And so Stephen knows how specific to the minute the clock is saying because he looked at the clock. So it seems like we are ready to talk about what these circular things, or probably square for most of you, what these so-called clocks really are. I'll be using my physical clock, but I have a fun little PowerPoint that I want you to go through with me. And what's even more fun is a song. I have a song. I can't wait. Second grade knows this song so much that it got stuck in their heads all summer, and they couldn't stop singing it. Can I get a thumbs up when you can see my screen? I'll play with Liam's hair. There we go. Let me know when you can see me. Thanks, Liam, for saying that's okay. Man, can you see it? Okay, good. All right, so let's start talking about time. We'll be learning about telling time. And now Gabriella and Stephen already told us a little bit about what time means. But now I want to know, how do clocks help us? So here's examples of clocks. They have their little hand and a big hand. They might be long clocks. They might be clocks that make noise. They might be big clocks. So we'll type here together. How do clocks help us? How do clocks help us? Does anyone know? So Stephen immediately looked. Go ahead, Natalie. I'll type what you say.
Sometimes if it's lunchtime and there isn't any clocks invented, you don't know if it's lunchtime or not.
Oh, okay. So especially in a school, clocks tell us when it is lunchtime. And Natalie, if you don't mind, I'd like to jump on what you were saying. They tell us when it's lunchtime and time to go to special. If Miss Remitz didn't have her clock, I would just keep teaching and teaching, and I wouldn't bring you to art class or music class. And that's what I did yesterday. I wasn't looking at my clock, so you were all late to class. Thanks, Natalie. Malvina, I saw you wanted to say something. How do clocks help us, Malvina? Who's that? Is that Gabrielle? It is.
So they also tell us like the exact time, like how, like when it's time to go to like the time, and it even tells us if you have to go anywhere and it's a certain time, you can like just keep watching the clock until.
So they tell us when to leave, maybe like what, for a doctor or something?
Yeah, maybe for a doctor.
Yeah, so if you have an appointment, right? The word appointment means you told someone you'll be there at exactly 9 o'clock. So you have to make sure you watch the clock so that you can get there right on time, right at 9 o'clock. When to leave for an appointment. Oh, I love that. Nice, Malvina. Thank you. And thank you, Natalie, too. So now we have some ideas of why a clock helps us. Another reason that I didn't type there, and this helped me last night, I was making pizzas, okay? And pizzas are very picky. And what I mean by that is if you cook them not long enough, the dough will be really mushy. But if you cook them too long, they'll be really hard and they won't taste good. They'll burn, right? So when cooking, a clock is very important. You have to have a timer. And I know some of you have maybe book timers. I know Gabriella has a bookmark that has a timer. But when it comes to your homework, maybe you set a timer for 15 minutes to read. If you only get an hour on the tablet or on your iPad, they might set a timer for that. So clocks help us keep track of time. Thanks, Malvina, for telling us that. So you might have heard Adi mention that there's two types of clocks. An analog clock, which if you want, you can try saying that word. It is a very weird word. Analog. Analog. It's like you have a girl named Anna sitting on a log. Analog. And an analog clock is the most famous one. It's a circular clock that has the numbers 1 to 12, and it has big hands on it. And those hands will slowly move as the day goes on, and they'll bring you to a new time. A lot of analog clocks have a third hand, which tells you all the seconds. So if you have to count to 10, the little clock will move really fast for you. But, and Stephen, correct me if I'm wrong, Stephen, when you knew it was exactly 9:25, is that because you were looking at a digital clock where it types out the numbers for you and every minute they'll change? We had both of these in our classroom. Was that what you were using, Stephen?
A digital clock is right in front of me, and an analog is right around the corner.
Can I ask, where's your digital clock?
It's on my microwave.
Ooh, so I have one on my microwave too. My friends, if you're anywhere near your kitchen, see if your oven, maybe you have a stove or an oven, that might have a clock. Maybe if you have an Apple Watch or something, that might have a digital. If you have a cell phone, that should have a digital clock pop up. So digital clocks are more popular today because some people, and it's really okay, some people don't know how to read an analog clock, which used to be the only type of clock. So they made a digital to make it quick and easy. Instead of having to figure out where the hands are pointing and squinting at the clock, a digital goes boom, it's 10:05 right here. Whereas for this one, I'd have to really squint and say, oh, it's 12:50. 11:50, or well, that's right before the 12, so that's actually 11:55. That is so specific and it can be difficult. If you all look at your screens, you should see right here there's a clock too. Now, thumbs up if that's an analog clock, and thumbs down if that's a digital clock, right up here. Right, thumbs down for digital. It's digital because it's on a computer. It's using technology to tell us, and it's just telling us the numbers. Awesome job. All right, let's go to my next slide. I had so much fun making this. So, Adi told us analog and digital. Those are the two types of clocks, but people take those and make them in different ways. So here's some other types. If you've ever had a watch, they used to look like this, and a lot of them still do. This is the watch I have when I go to class. But some people now have Apple Watches or a Fitbit. Here's a cuckoo clock. I know that's a favorite in our class because we always say cuckoo. If you look right here, there's a little door, and every time it hits a new hour, it goes cuckoo, 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 and a bird or something else will pop out of the clock. And then down here, does anyone want to take a guess at what this is? This one looks really old. It's a circle with this non-moving line, and that looks like a shadow. So this goes perfect with what we were talking about with light. Anyone have a guess as to what that might be? Samarth, we haven't heard from you today. What is that, Samarth?
I don't remember the name, but there's one in India.
Interesting. So these are all over the world. These are what people were using before they made clocks. So we like to say that the analog clock was the first type because it's the most popular. It was the first one that really worked and you could trust it. Whereas this one, if it's a cloudy day, you can't read this. So here's a hint. You need a sun. So sun is in the name. Do you have a guess?
I don't remember. I think it's Sandra Mantra.
No, I mean, maybe that's what they call it over the ocean. But Adi, do you have an idea? I saw your hand was up too. A sun.
I know how to say it in Hindi and English. In Hindi, they call it a dhupgadi. In English, they call it a sundial.
A sundial. Yes. So it's called a sundial. And basically a dial is something that you might turn, or it's kind of, if you look at a stove, if there's maybe a little button that you get to turn, that's called a dial. But in this case, this dial doesn't move. This dial stays there, and what moves is the shadow. So as the sun sets or rises, the shadow is going to change. And if you remember when we did shadows back in January, sorry to Josiah and Liam, but you might have done this at your old school. We traced with chalk your shadows and then saw when we went back at another time that your shadows moved. And so just like the hands on a clock moving like this, the shadow's going to move and point to what time of day it is. So that was the first invention of a clock. Well, now we know what time is. We know what a clock looks like and what types of clocks there are. Let's talk about the hands on a clock. So I was saying that shadow acts like a hand on the clock, but now we have real hands. And if you have a digital, you don't have hands, but you have 2 points that'll tell you the hour and the minute. So here we have the big hand and a little hand. And I already gave you the answer, but don't worry, I'll let you guess the time that we're showing. But my friends, this is the most easy thing to mess up. If I'm being honest, me, Miss Remitz, I always always used to mess up and switch the hour hand and the minutes, the big hand. So what I did was I really practiced hard one summer after I had school. This was in about 5th grade, I think. So if you can't learn time with me right now, it's okay. You'll be learning it every year. And maybe it will take you until 5th grade like me to really get it. Or maybe you got it in kindergarten or you get it right now. And you'll have fun trying it and showing off your time skills. But just remember, the hour hand is the little hand. And that's because it's reaching out to the bigger numbers. Look here, do you see these tiny little lines? If I had this small hand trying to point to these little lines, I wouldn't know which one it's pointing to. But if I have this little hand pointing to these big numbers, I know exactly which one it's pointing to. Look at my clock here. I know it's in a smaller video, but look at my clock. The smaller hand's able to reach to the hours, but the big hand is able to reach to those tiny little notches. And that's why the big hand is for the minutes. It's not because it's counting a bigger number, because the hours we know are really big on a clock. They mean a whole 60 minutes, whereas these little guys only talk about 60 seconds. They're only for 1 minute. So this is what solved it for me. It's not about what they're counting, what numbers, it's about which parts of the clock they're counting. The little hand goes to the big numbers, and the big hand goes to the little numbers. Who would like to look at this clock? So if we know that the little hand's talking about the hour, and the minute hand or the big hand is talking about the minutes. Now let me see, I don't know if I said that right. The little hand is pointing to the hour, the big hand is pointing to the minutes. What time do you think this is? Now, Stephen, if you could help the class that might maybe not be too sure, what is it when the big hand gets to the 12? How many minutes is that talking about?
0.
0. Stephen, awesome job. High five. Stephen and Gabriella had talked about how it starts over when it gets to the top of the clock because there's only 12 hours on a clock. So when it switches, now it's talking about daytime or nighttime. So my friends, there's 60 minutes in an hour. And as soon as you ding, hit that top of the clock, you've gotten to the last minute, which means the next hour could start. So when the big hand's on the 12, that means that it's the start of a new hour. So it's just 0, right? And now wherever the little hand is pointing to, that's what hour it is. So I'll show you how to write that, of course, but how would you say it? How would you say this time? Now I'll jump out and see if anyone wants to take a crack at it. Anyone want to guess what this time is? Ryan? All right, let's hear from you, Ryan. I hope you didn't freeze. I'll give Ryan a chance. There you go, Ryan. Ryan, what time is this? What's your guess?
5:12.
Oh, but remember, so the big hand's not counting the big numbers. It's counting the little ones. So only these big numbers are being used for the hours, okay? Until you get really with specific minutes. But when it's at the 12, it's a 0. So you got the hour right. So he got, I'll show you a little bit of what Ryan got. He got 5. Ryan, so if I said this was a 0, that would mean that you're only saying the 5, right?
Oh, it's 5?
5. And you can say AM or PM or 5 o'clock. Now, the word o'clock just really means what hour it is. So, Ryan, awesome job here. He said 5. And so here it is. There we go. Ryan said the 5 for the hour. And because the big hand was on the 12, it's a 0, like Steven says. It's starting over a new hour. And that's why it's just 5:00. There's no minutes yet. If it was 5:12, this big hand would go to the 12th little notch. Does that make sense, Ryan?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, don't worry. We're not getting that specific. That's second grade work. We're only doing the hour, and next week we'll do a half hour because we talked about fractions. But how about this? Ryan, what if I changed it, and we'll call on someone else, but what if I changed this clock and had my big hand now pointing to the 7, We'll be changing our time because of the little hand and the big hand. Well, let me put that back in case anyone else wants to guess themselves. Let's go to the next one. Does anyone have any questions so far before I tell you how to write the time? This is a lot to take on, but I promise you it'll be easier in your homework. Stephen, you have a question? And then we'll go to Kenzie.
I don't have a question.
Okay, Kenzie, what's your question?
The only thing I know is o'clocks.
O'clocks? Perfect. Well, that's what we're working on today, so you'll be a professional.
Because Mama has a broken clock, so I use it for time, and she practices with me.
Oh, fun. Well, that's one way to definitely practice is by using maybe an old clock that you can just move around, or if you have a fake clock like me, mine's just paper. So my friends, you can absolutely make your own little clock and practice. So Ryan was able to read the time on the clock, but in your homework today, you'll have to write the numbers, okay? Now, this is what it looks like on a digital clock. You have a number, then this little 2 dots, and then a 2-digit number. Now it might be 00 or 01, 02, 03, but there's always 2 digits. And the cool thing is this is telling the hours. So this is 2 o'clock. And then it tells you the minutes here, which can go all the way up to 59. Why do you think that is? What if I added one more to 59, it would make 60. And that's because it would start over. Every time you get to 60 minutes, you're at a new hour. And the clock would just keep going. Once the clock gets all the way here, see how my big hand starts to move? And once it gets up to the 12, you're at a new hour. You're at 60 minutes. And then you're at 6 o'clock in 1 minute, 6 o'clock in 2 minutes, 6 o'clock in 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 6 minutes, 7 minutes, all the way to 60 minutes again. And then it would be at the next hour. My clock's a little funky, but a real clock would do better than that. Ooh, so look here. If you ever heard me go, oh, it's 9 a.m., time for school. AM means the morning and PM means at nighttime. And Stephen, that was very interesting when you said that 12 p.m. is actually lunchtime. Can you explain that to us? Or if anyone would like to, okay, yeah.
The real 12 p.m. is actually called midnight.
Well, that's interesting that you say that. So PM means the afternoon and the nighttime. And when we get to 12 p.m., that's when we go eat lunch. That's noon. And then it goes to 1 p.m., 2 p.m., and you see the sun starts setting and the moon comes out. And Stephen said that the next 12 o'clock is midnight. You're right. But did you know that is actually AM. And I know that might be shocking to you, but that's because PM means 12 p.m. means that the night is coming. 12 a.m. means the sun is coming. Ooh. So midnight is the last part of nighttime. And then 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., you start waking up, 5 a.m., 6 a.m., 7 a.m., 8 a.m., you're getting ready for school, 9 a.m. Then we sit down at our computers and get ready for class. So be very careful when you're saying PM and AM, because you have to really look outside and say, is it the morning or the afternoon or the nighttime? That's when this part really helps. But right now it's obvious that it's morning time. So you could just say that it's 9 o'clock and I'll know you're talking about the morning because the sun's out. If you said it's 9 a.m. and I heard the owls hooting at nighttime, yeah, I would say maybe you have to switch that to PM. My friends, today in your homework, you'll really just be writing what we saw over here. You'll only be doing just the hour. So if you wanted to say o'clock, that's fine. If you wanted to try the math way and writing 2 with these little lines, those little lines that separate it from the hour and the minute, you can do that. And this is my favorite part. I won't show you this because I don't know if it'll work on my computer, but this is a really catchy song that helps you tell the time. Its main lesson is the big hands on the 12 and the small hands on the, and it's whatever number, and that tells you what clock is it, what time it is. So if it's the little number, the little hand is on the 5, the song will say, it's 5 o'clock. The big hands on the 12 and the small hands on the 5. And that's how you know it's 5 o'clock, 500. I totally hope that you watch this song. I watched it every single day when I was teaching time. There's also a half-hour song that I'll be showing you next week. But if you are confused, if you are staring at your computer going, Miss Remitz, what? This song is really helpful because sometimes we learn better with songs. But how about we practice together? I was talking about our class schedule, and this is what it was like back in the classroom, which Liam, I don't even know if you remember being in a classroom. It was so long ago. I wish you could have seen our class. We had a lot of fun there. But this was our class's schedule. And I already got started making the time, and now you will help me. So I'll cut back to you, but let's see here. School starts at 9 a.m. So the big hands on the 12 and the small hands on the 9. And that means that it's 9 o'clock. Then, after we're done our morning meeting and unpacking and we do the calendar, reading time starts at 10 a.m. So, and if you want, you can do it with me. The big hands on the 12 and the small hands on the 10. You can see 1 whole hour has passed. That's where math comes in. Gabriella was saying these numbers go in order. Yeah, it went from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. And look here, 11 a.m. Would anyone like to take a guess at how this clock would look like? How would the clock look to show, and here I'll write it down. I'll put it at the start so we can put it together. I want to make 11 hours and 0 minutes, 11 o'clock. How would you put this on the actual clock? Allison, you're using your hands. Would you like to take a guess? Tell me where the big hand should go.
On the 12.
Right, because we're making 0 minutes, so it has to go on the 12. Okay, I'll drag it. The big hand's on the 12. What about the little hand?
The
smaller one's on 11.
To look like this.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say the big hand's on the 12 and the small hand's on the 11. Yes, you did it. That means that it's 11 o'clock. And if I wanted to say that it was in the morning time, I would say it's 11 a.m. So it'll look like this. Now, Allison probably noticed this because we were going in order, like Gabriella said. But the rest of you, look at this. It went from 9 to 10 to 11. You can see that it's slowly going up by 1. If I wanted to do the next hour, it would be 12 o'clock. And look how silly 12 o'clock looks. They're just on top of each other. You'd think I stole my little hand or something. Well, we have lunchtime, and then we come back, and it's 1 o'clock, and we're getting ready. We're using the restroom. Then it gets to, the clock starts moving a bit, and it gets to 1:30. At 1:30, we're going to head over to special. And then when you come back at 2 o'clock, I know it's normally 2:30, but I'm just saying 2 o'clock for the sake of this game. At 2 o'clock, we're getting ready to start math time. So what would my time look now? Following the pattern that we set up for us, who would like to take a shot at that? Malvina, go ahead. And I hope you can see this. I know it might be a little small on your screen. I'm sorry if it is. Malvina, how would you make 12 o'clock? Let's see if I can make this a little bigger. No, that's making it smaller. All right, Malvina, where would you have the big hand?
The big hand would be on the 12.
Okay, because that's showing us 0 minutes. That's us starting over our clock. So you're saying the big hand's on the 12.
Yeah.
Where's the small hand?
It's on the 2.
On the 2. So if I were to write that down, that would be the little hand means 2 hours, and the big hand on the 12 means 0 minutes because it's starting over. Look, you made the time I was asking for. The big hand's on the 12 and the small hand's on the 2. Though I wish it, there we go. It's on the 2. Yay, we made 2 o'clock. Awesome job, Malvina. And I hope the rest of you were agreeing with her and you had the same idea. Well, next week we'll use our schedule again to talk about half hours. But this shows you how important a clock is at school. Because without a clock, digital or analog or even a cuckoo clock, I wouldn't know if it was time to start reading or writing. I can't tell by looking at the sun. I would need a sundial for that. So that's why analog clocks are so important for us. Let's try a couple more, and then we'll take our break. And we'll do a little writing today. So let's look at these clocks, my friends. I'll need 6 people to help us. So I'll give you a moment to look at all of them. Hopefully that guy goes away. There we go. Remember, we're looking at just the hour. So when the big hand's on the 12, that's why you see 0, 0, because it's starting over. There's 0 minutes. If this clock hand, the big hand, started moving, sure, these numbers would start to go up. But right now, I'm at the start of a new hour. So you're looking at the big hand on the 12 and the small hands on the... And whichever number it's pointing to, that's telling you what hour it is. What o'clock? So I'll give you a moment to study this. Now I regret that these little hands look a little smaller, but remember, a little bigger than they should. But remember, the minute hand is really close to those numbers and the little hand is further away. So that's how it should help you. All right, let's see. Who has an idea for the first one? The big hand's on the 12 and the small hand's on the what? Who would like to help me with that? Ryan. All right, Ryan was our first guinea pig. So Ryan, let's see if you can get this one.
It's 7.
7 o'clock?
Yes.
Let's see if you're right. The big hand's on the 12, which means the zeros, and the small hand's on the 7. Awesome job, Ryan. So that would be 7 hours and 0 minutes. So here, I'll write a 7 for you. 7 o'clock. Awesome job, Ryan. It seems like you're starting to pick up on it. Let's look at the next one. The big hand's on the 12 and the small hand's on the what? Let's see. Kenzie, you want to take a shot at it? Kenzie was a little nervous to start time. Let's see.
9 o'clock.
Which one?
9 o'clock.
Let's see. So the big hand's on the 12, which means there's 2 little zeros, and the small hand's on the 9. Awesome job. So I would write it as 9 hours, those little dots. And the 0 means how many minutes. Awesome job. So it should look like this. Look, 7 o'clock and 9 o'clock are 2 hours apart. See how you can use math and clock and time? Who would like to help us with the next one? The big hand's on the 12 and the small hand's on the what? Gabriella, I see you had pressed the button. So sure, Gabriella, help us with this one. I'll stop jumping in and out. I'll let you just look at this one.
2 o'clock.
Ooh, well, let's zoom in. Zoom in. The big hand's on the 12 and the small hand's on the what? What number is that? That is a 1. So be careful because that little hand, it's true. It might look like it's not pointing exactly to a number, but it would have to point towards this 2 over here to be 2 o'clock. So that would be 1 hour and 0 minutes. Oh, I thought I typed it. There we go. 1 hour and 0 minutes. Thank you, Gabriella. Samarth, can you help us with this one?
It's 5 o'clock.
Why?
Because the minute hand. Wait.
The minute hand's on the
12.
and the small hand's on the
5.
Yes, the hour hand. I like how you were calling them by their exact math names. Yeah, so it would be 5 hours and 0 minutes. What, bud?
I didn't say 0 minutes.
0 minutes. Yeah, I talked over you. I apologize. All right, how about Adi? Can you help us? Started talking like a robot. Adi, can you help us with this one?
In that one, it is 12 o'clock.
Well,
I mean 8 o'clock. I mean 8 o'clock.
Okay, well, good. So for anyone that was also thinking it was 12 o'clock, maybe a little bit, that would have the 12 hand on the 12 and the small hand on the 12. So remember, the 12 o'clock looks a little weird. So if you're never sure if it's 12 o'clock, see if they're on top of each other. But yes, Adi, you're right. It's 8 o'clock. Because it's the 8 hour and 0 minutes. Yes. We'll do our last time of the day. Who would like to try it? Julian, are you stretching or raising your hand? It looks like both. You want to do it? Julian, come on down. Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do. If it was in the classroom, I'd have you run up to the board. That's why. All right, Julian. Oh, Julian, this number was meant for you.
4 o'clock.
Which one?
4 o'clock.
Why?
Because 4 and there's no zero. Because 12
means 0.
12 means 0
Minutes, yes.
minutes. Two 12s.
Would mean 12 o'clock. That's true. And what about the small hand is pointing to what for how many hours?
4 hours.
4 hours and 0 minutes. Did we write 4 o'clock?
Yes.
Absolutely. Julian, thanks for helping us finish on such a nice note. My friends, if you ever want to practice what we were talking about today, we'll be talking about this again on Thursday. I have this whole presentation on today's post. It's right here, so you can look at it if you kind of want to practice. And I have the Telling Time song, which helped me become a professional. And seemingly a lot of you already are picking up on this. Today you have 2 pages in your math book that ask you a couple time questions. And then I'll tell you your writing homework in a little bit.